5 losses in a row for Boston College. The season is season is spinning out of control. How bad can it get? And what is going on with this team? We're going to talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to do an episode dedicated to basketball. They lost their 5th game in a row. Every game that they're losing seems to be close. What is going on with this team, and why are they struggling? We're going to get into all of that on today's show. And to join us is Eagle Insider expert basketball writer Mike Sidley. Mike, how's it going?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I couldn't pick a better person. If we're going to talk basketball, we're going to get Mike on here. So, Mike, you've been at these games. You've been watching. We'll talk a little bit about, I think for a while it felt like Fred Payne was turning into the guy, but he's kind of hit a bump in the road, let's say, and his struggle. What's going on with his game that you've noticed?
Yeah, sure. So just kind of an overview. I think when you look at this 5-game losing streak, I think people would naturally assume it's due to Donald Hand because he's been struggling this season, but that really hasn't been the case as of late, right? In his previous 4 games before he got hurt last night, he was averaging 15.8 points per game. He was shooting 44%. He's really been the one carrying the load for this team offensively. And surprisingly, like you said, Fred Payne, who's been BC's, entire offense this year, essentially, he's been the one who's been struggling a little bit during this streak. While he's averaging 14 points per game over the last 4 games, he's doing it while going a combined 3 for 23 from 3. And he's not shooting a high percentage from the field. And he had a wide open 3-point shot last night on the wing with a chance to tie it late in the game, and it rimmed out. So that kind of sealed the deal on that one. And it's really unfortunate because, in the first 19 games of the season, Hand was the one who was struggling. Fred was the guy carrying the load. And now that DJ, before he got hurt, obviously, is really finding his rhythm, Fred is the one struggling. So those guys haven't really been able to sync up this season and, really play off of each other. And it's interesting to think what could have been if Hand had been playing like this at the beginning of the year.
Speaking of that, you were there last night. Can you give us an update? I know Earl talked about the injury. What happened with Donald Hand during the game?
Yeah, so he went down a little behind half court, and he was grabbing his knee, and play stopped, and Conti went completely silent. Everybody kind of, was focusing in on that, and he was grabbing his knee for like 2 to 3 minutes, and then trainers helped him up, and he was limping really bad coming off the floor. And as he reached the parallel with the bench to head into the locker room, he walked off on his own accord. And then he came back in the second half in street clothes and, asking Coach Grant about it. He said that he was, we're praying for Donald, but he was walking around fine and in the locker room. So wasn't good enough to come back. I think they're just, trying to play it cautious. But yeah, I'm interesting to see kind of what comes from that and if he's, available for the next game at Cal.
Now, one player that, a lot of folks blame the coaching staff, and for good reason. There's lots going on that you can get on Earl Grant and his staff on. But there's been some players that have struggled on their own too, right? They've been making some questionable choices out there. And one that really kind of bit himself yesterday was Jayden Hastings, who fouled out again. Talk a little bit about his play and what he needs to tighten up to really maximize his play.
Sure. So last night in the first half, BC forces a nice turnover on the defensive end. Everybody's fired up. Conti's going crazy. And Jayden Hastings goes up to one of the Stanford players and screams in his face. And he gets a technical, and he has his hands up like he's confused and like, of course you're going to get teed up for that. And he's been a guy that's been, really undisciplined over this 5-game losing streak. He's fouled out in 2 of the 3 games. During the 5-game period, he's averaged 4.2 fouls per game. And there's points early in the game where he has to come out because he gets 2 quick fouls. And he's a guy that you need on the defensive end, that you need as an inside presence offensively. So that's been really unfortunate that he's kind of, continued his undisciplined style of play from last year.
Yeah, and he's obviously an athletic player, and it seems like he has a really strong upside. Do you see them getting more offensively from him? Like, can he develop into more of an offensive threat? Because it feels like you're just scratching the surface with him right now with that.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of last year, when he was really like scoring in bunches, they were letting him put the ball on the floor and handle it a little bit and drive on his own. And they've kind of relegated him to, pick and roll, stand in the post, and like he is a lob threat, but he doesn't have great hands. He's never been great at catching the ball. So I'd like to see them let him have a little bit more freedom. But obviously, he can if he gets those 2 quick fouls and he's out, and he only ends up playing 18 minutes because he can't stay on the floor without playing too aggressive.
And then in terms of obviously the culture of this team is around the defense. And Earl grabbed some players, Chase Forte and this player I'm going to talk about in a moment, that were known for their defense. But it's so interesting how limited offensively Aidan Shaw is. Like, he's so athletic,
right,
and he's good for one crazy dunk. It seems like every game he has one thunder, but that's about it. You don't get a whole lot out of him. So what are your thoughts on how Shaw has looked? And honestly, let's talk Chase Forte a little bit too while you're at it.
Yeah, just on Shaw, like you said, like he'll have a nice highlight reel that they put in slow motion on the socials.
Yep.
Looks really nice, but yeah, he's not a great offensive weapon, and even sometimes he'll have 1 or 2 highlight blocks. I mean, kind of a football comp, sort of the Omar Thornton of the basketball team, where he looks great on these highlight plays, but he'll get blown by a few times. He'll leave a player open on an assignment, so. He's been, pretty much as advertised, obviously relegated to the bench now because Bowden Koepke is a much better offensive player. But yeah, I don't think his defense outweighs his poor offensive play. He's a good spark plug. He's a guy that can get the crowd going. He's a guy that, will provide some great athleticism in transition, but that's been pretty much it. And on Chase, he was kind of looked at as the guy that was going to be the number 3 scoring option besides behind Hand and Fred, and he hasn't really been that. He's had some moments like a good game early on against FAU. He'll score like 12, 13 points here and there, but a lot of times he'll go on like 3-game streaks where he's shooting a combined 2 for 12. And like last night, while he was a spark plug, he had a nice steal that led to a score. He can be that guy, but he's just not consistent enough. And I think that's sort of a culmination of this team is they'll have good plays, good moments, but it's just not consistent.
All right, in a moment, I want to talk more about some more things going on with this team, including the inability to put teams away and to win when it gets late. We're going to get all that in just a moment.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
The tax season doesn't have to take over your life this year. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand things off and just move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. You can upload your documents, including your W-2s or self-employed forms. Go about your day and get the experts right in the TurboTax. Who wants to handle tax stuff all day? Well, TurboTax does. I know I don't. I use my TurboTax, and it's amazing. It's a huge time saver and gets real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by TurboTax experts for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Wrapping things up here, Locked On Boston College here with Mike Sidley, to talk about more basketball talk. But I also want to make sure that everyone knows, if you have not joined our Everydayers Club, make sure you sign up today. You get free extra bonus content, texting with me, and I know a lot of you guys want to text with me, and you get all sorts of great little perks. Sign up is below. So, Mike, the big theme, and Earl Grant has talked about it a lot, and it sounds like he's getting tired of talking about it, just probably like what Bill O'Brien talked about injuries last year, is this: they're close, but they're not winning games. What are the kind of plays and what's going on that's causing all these games that are right in their grasp, but just to slip away consistently?
Yeah, no, let's talk about this, because there's been like one or two plays each game during the streak that you can point to that really swing it in the opposite direction and cause BC to lose. Like against Notre Dame, it was a technical foul on Aidan Shaw late in the second half. He pushed a player to the ground, and that allowed the Irish to shoot 4 foul shots because Bowden Kapke had a shooting foul on that play, and BC ended up losing by 4 after being up 13. Against UVA, with 3 minutes left down 2, Jayden Hastings had a nice steal and then dribbled over half court, panicked, and threw the ball back to Luca Tays, who was like 10 feet behind the half court line, and that resulted in a turnover, and BC lost by single digits. You know, Duke was kind of a wash. They got down 13-0. That game was over in the first 5 minutes. But against Miami, DJ had a bad turnover with 2 minutes to play, down 3, and it gave the Hurricanes an easy bucket. They got up by 5 and essentially ended that game. And then obviously the Tech against Hastings in the Stanford game, the missed Fred Payne 3. And listen, at the end of the day, good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose. And you hear Coach Grant talk over and over again, say, you know, if this play had gone this way and if that play had gone this way, we would be 5 games over 500. But, you know, would have, could have, should have. You are what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a Bill Parcells quote, and it's true. Like,
yep.
You're just not a good enough team to win those gritty games. And, you know, kind of giving another Patriots analogy here, during like the Tom Brady years, yeah, you would beat teams 36-10, but you would also beat teams, you know, 16-14 against a 4-8 Panthers team on a Thursday night. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yep.
Good teams find a way to win ugly games. BC plays a lot of ugly games, and they end up losing most of them. So it's just really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's tough because it does seem so close, and it's just like, you know, there was that 12-0 run that Stanford went on them, and it's like, if you could just eliminate those types of things or limit them even more, this team is right there, but they just can't get over that. And I don't know what the issue is. Is it talent? Is it coaching? Some combination of the both. So now, Mike, to wrap things up, I have one question for you. I hope there's not a lot of basketball parents listening, because we're going to get really down here. Will BC basketball win another game this year?
Yes, they will. I think the March 7th game against Notre Dame, they've got a pretty good shot. I don't think Marcus Burton is coming back. He had a timetable to return in early March, which would obviously be around this time, but I don't really think that's advantageous for him to come back. I mean, Notre Dame is like one of the only other teams in the ACC that's worse than BC. They're 2-10 in conference play. And, you know, if Burton can medically redshirt and not lose a year of eligibility, I don't think that he's going to come back. And BC had a 13-point lead against Notre Dame in their previous matchup. And, you know, I don't know, obviously, you know, what the report is on DJ, but if he can come back, sync with Fred Payne, you know, turn a 13-point lead that they had into a 15-point lead right off into the sunset, I think that's their best chance, AJ.
All right. So, Mike, we're going to have you back again. We're doing these smaller episodes, and I want to talk more basketball because I think things could get interesting in the next month or so. And we're going to definitely want to talk more about that. Tell people about your work and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on the Eagle Insider website. I cover basketball, obviously. I cover football. I just did a player interview with Bodie Cahoon. I've got some other interviews on there. Looking forward to spring practice as well. So yeah, I'll be wrapping up the season doing basketball and heading into football. So really excited about that.
And you're covering stuff outside of BC too, right?
Yeah. I write for the Lowell Sun a little bit. I cover some high school games for them. It's been a blast.
Hey, get all your work out there, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so Mike is great, and check out his work over at Eagle Insight. You can check me out at AJ Black 247. We'll have another episode out tomorrow morning. Check that out. It'll be a lot more football focused. I have some different thoughts about recruiting and things that you're going to want to make sure you listen there. Follow me on Twitter at AJ Black 247. Check out Eagle Insider. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button before you head out, and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.